By the way, just to give you an insight about what's been happening, a lot of scheduling issues between the prosecution, the judge, the defense. They want to stay on schedule. They're flying people in and out, witnesses. The direct is maybe going longer. The cross is maybe going longer. So they're trying to figure it all out, particularly with the witness today, Mia, alleged victim number 4. Let's talk about it. Let me bring in right now Elizabeth Millner, our Law&Crime reporter, who is in that courtroom for the testimony of Mia. Elizabeth, so good to see you. Such an important witness, right? Because this is somebody who is going by a pseudonym. This is alleged victim number 4 in this case. And she has described not only what her working relationship was like with Sean Combs, what this environment was like, but she claims that she, was a victim of both physical and sexual abuse. Talk to us about what Mia has said so far.
Yeah, absolutely, Jesse. So yeah, Mia came onto the witness stand right after Deontay Nash. So she comes in, and I'm going to be very kind of careful as far as how I'm describing her, because she is testifying under a pseudonym, and you can tell a little bit inside the courtroom why she is doing that. When she walks inside the courtroom, she keeps her head down. She doesn't look towards the defense table. She doesn't really look at us in the gallery. She just makes, again, a beeline to the witness stand. And even while she's testifying, Jesse, she's very soft-spoken. She's very quiet often at times, so you can feel just her apprehension just about everything as far as testifying goes. Even while answering the prosecution's questions, she's keeping her head down from what I can see over in the gallery, but you can just feel just the nervousness from her as far as testifying. And even when she gets off the stand, she doesn't look at the defense table. She just walks past the gallery. Her family and her support system go right after her, and then she goes over into a private room. But just as far as just some of the testimony that she had talked about today, she did describe that Diddy did take violence out on her too. Mia described that Diddy would throw things at her. He would throw her against the wall. One time he even slammed her arm into a door, and then even sexually assaulted her more than once.
Yeah, and let's just wait for this siren to go down. Very, very busy street. This is somebody we had anticipated, right? Because she's important for multiple reasons. She's important not only to corroborate what Cassie Ventura has said, but if you're talking about a pattern of abuse towards women, put aside the sex trafficking count for, I hear playback in my ear, by the way, putting aside the sex trafficking count for Cassandra Ventura, what we're also talking about is the racketeering charge. And we just got word that prosecutor Madison Smizer said her direct examination is likely going to take the rest of the day. What do you anticipate she's going to say, Elizabeth, from what we've heard so far?
Well, I definitely think they're going to get into more of just the violence that Mia had witnessed while working for Diddy, but also being Cassie's best friend, a role that she still has to this day. The two are really close friends, something that Deontay Nash even confirmed while he was testifying. But yes, the direct examination is expected to last throughout the day. Even right before I came out to chat with you, Jesse, there was a little kind of angst, I would say, from the defense, because essentially the government is saying that Mia has to be off the stand by the weekend. So tomorrow is Friday, so they're hoping that they're able to finish her direct examination today, go over to the cross tomorrow. But the problem is that sometimes the cross examinations do take maybe twice as long as the direct testimony, and it's been a kind of a sticking point that a lot of us have been kind of noticing, especially just sitting in the gallery. But Mark Agnifilo kind of took a little bit of offense to just being given a time frame as far as how long this cross-examination goes. And the thing is, Jesse, he's not going to even be the one doing the cross-examination. It's actually going to be Brian Steele doing the cross-examination against Mia, or for Mia, I should say. But the defense was pretty upset about it because they felt like the government was telegraphing the time frame for witnesses, especially since the government said that Mia needed to be off the stand. But from the government's point of view, they're essentially saying this is all for logistics purposes. If we're expecting Mia to not be off the stand by the weekend, then we have to pause our flight scheduling and all of that for the next witnesses that are going to be following up after her. But it seems like from the defense's perspective, they were just really kind of offended just about the time frames that they were given. But the judge kind of pointed out that, the government is doing this, but they're not doing this as a way to kind of slight the defense. They're doing this as kind of a common courtesy for those logistics purposes. And the judge kind of seemed like he took offense to it as well, too, what the defense was telling him. He was saying that It's common courtesy, and that even the judge wanted to know these things as far as how long the direct will last, possibly how long the cross-examination will last. And so it seems like kind of a sticking point where the defense may feel like they are being kind of constrained to a certain time frame. But there's never been a moment so far that the judge was like, okay, you got to wrap up this cross-examination after an hour. You got to wrap this up in 30 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. So really, they can just have a free go and just really ask all the questions, maybe questions that they didn't need to ask, but will continue to ask because they have to cross-examine their witness.
I got to talk about Deontay Nash. So obviously we'll continue the conversation with Mia, and there's a lot to break down with our panel of guests. Deontay Nash, important witness, celebrity stylist, right? And he had testified that he was, him and Mia, the only people that actually stepped in to actually intervene in Sean Combs allegedly assaulting Cassandra Ventura, talked about the threats that Combs made towards Cassandra Ventura, talked about that she didn't want to be a part of freak-offs. Very, very important witness. But then it was time for cross-examination today. I wasn't entirely sure what the cross was about and what were the points they were making, other than the fact I think he's still not only in touch with Cassie, but maybe even supplied her the wardrobe that she wore in court. And I think he was still maintaining some sort of communicative relationship with Sean Combs only until a few years ago. So it becomes a question if all these things happened to him and Cassie, and he claims he was also attacked by Combs, that this might go to his credibility. But where exactly did the cross-examination go today of Deontay Nash?
Well, the cross-examination, just honestly, quite frankly, was all over the place this morning. It's first thing in the morning. It was just kind of a lot this morning, I should say. Even just starting off, Xavier Donaldson tells Deontay Nash, "Good morning, how are you?" And Deontay Nash still has that sass, which I absolutely love, and he responded, "Blessed." And so just as far as just kind of the incidents that occurred when it came to the violence, they brought up the bed frame incident, and that was something that Mia testified as well today too, where they were explaining that they were all over at Cassie's apartment. It was Deontay, it was Mia, it was Cassie. They were helping her pack for this trip, and then all of a sudden they hear a knock or a banging on the door, and it was Diddy looking for Cassie. And so essentially Diddy kind of picks Cassie up from where she is. He throws her down. He's essentially attacking her in front of her friends, her stylist, but also Mia is still working for Diddy at this point. But essentially, at this point, Mia and Deontay do step in. As far as Deontay is concerned, Deontay jumps on Diddy's back. Diddy throws Deontay to the ground. Then when Deontay's on the ground, Mia jumps on Diddy's back to kind of stop him. Then all of a sudden, Cassie is essentially on the ground because she had hit her head and busted her head open on this really pointy, sharp bed frame. There was blood everywhere. It was something that even Mia testified again to today. But just as far as the responses, as far as the response is concerned, I should say, that this was just kind of a really big sticking point, I feel like, as far as this particular incident, because it was so violent, because Cassie drew blood in this incident, or not drew blood, but not necessarily, but instead blood was gushing from her head. Mia had to go and get towels, and what ended up happening was a call was made, and essentially Cassie was taken to a plastic surgeon, and they were told that Cassie was drinking during this, and that it wasn't a violent encounter that had happened that had caused this type of nash or gash, I should say, as far as just the blood and the amount of blood that was taken, or the amount of blood, I should say, that just gushed from her head, essentially. And so they lied, or not lied, but they essentially said that this incident was because Cassie was drinking. She fell down and hit her head. So that was in regards to just the bed frame incident. But yes, Jesse, to your point, it was definitely one of those sticking out moments, especially because you finally see people stepping in, even kind of in a way attacking Diddy for the most part to get him off of Cassie. But even as far as the end of the cross-examination is concerned, yes, Xavier Donaldson was really asking Deontay Nash just about his communications with Diddy in the years even after he stopped working with them professionally. So this was around kind of the 2019 timeframe. We see an exhibit photo of this text message between Deontay and Diddy was upset that Deontay didn't tell him that Cassie was seeing the trainer. And who was the trainer? Well, the trainer is Alex Fine, her now husband, who she just had her third child with. And so Diddy used this text message to kind of ask how Cassie was doing. doing. And I think the defense was kind of pointing out that that Diddy still cared about Cassie even after their relationship, because again, this was 2019. They broke up in 2018. All the D names. Deontay reached out to Diddy about Kim Porter's death and even Andre Harrell's death. Andre Harrell was a central figure in Diddy's life. He was somebody who had mentored him, and you could arguably say that Andre Harrell is kind of the reason that Diddy got to the point where he is as far as success is concerned. Maybe Diddy doesn't think that, but really you could kind of argue that in a way. But then we see another text message kind of going back in time a little bit, this one from January 30th of 2016. And this is where the cross-examination ends, where they were kind of implying that Cassie was secretive. She didn't tell Deontay, who she considers to be a best friend, just about the freak-offs, that he didn't know about these freak-offs until 2013 when they were at just a hotel together, they were hanging out together, and Diddy was threatening to release these sexually explicit videos of him, and just how it kind of ties back to Deontay saying, like, girl, let him release these videos because he's on them too. It kind of relates to that. And so they ended the cross-examination where Xavier Donaldson asked, "You deeply care for Cassie?" And Deontay responded, "Correct. And she kept major secrets from you." And Deontay Nash, in his Deontay Nash way, was like, "Well, I keep secrets from her too. We don't have to tell each other everything." Which, do best friends have to tell each other every single aspect of their lives? I mean, not necessarily. It's not necessarily holding a secret, but I feel like what the defense was trying to point out, that this was this big secret that she wouldn't even tell her closest friends that these types of things even happen.
By the way, before I let you go, Elizabeth, you have Deontay Nash, you have Mia. How is the jury reacting to this testimony?
Well, let me tell you, Jesse, today for Mia's testimony, it was a packed courtroom. And so it was really kind of hard to see because of all the bodies in front of me, just their reaction to everything. But so far, it seems like from what I can see, and that's really kind of the tail end of the jury box, is just that these jurors are doing what they've been doing for the past couple of weeks. Is they're taking notes, they're listening. I couldn't see if there was like an emotional reaction, especially as Mia was kind of talking about the bed frame incident, because for Mia's point of view, it seemed like she was very upset recalling this particular piece of testimony. So I couldn't tell if there was an emotional reaction from the jury. And even from Diddy's side over on the defense table, I could barely see his reaction to things. In between heads, sometimes I would see him jotting down notes or shaking his head, that type of thing, especially when it came to Mia flat out saying that Diddy had sexually assaulted her more than once. But as far as just the jury's reaction overall, it's really hard to tell sometimes with them.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we have a question that came in on YouTube from L. Spelunker. Is anyone acting shocked by all of this in the courtroom? His mom, his kids, the jurors? Does Diddy make any noises or movements? So you're kind of giving us a perspective on what we should be seeing in that courtroom and what we're expecting. Elizabeth, I know you have to head back in there. Thank you so much, as always, for your great reporting, your great detail. We're lucky to have you. Thanks so much, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right, so we're going to continue the conversation. We're going to take your questions. Obviously, a lot to talk about here, including with Mia's testimony. So right now, let me bring on Alexis Rosenberg, trial attorney, federal litigator, and also David Ring, civil trial attorney who has a specialization in sex crimes cases. Thank you both so much for taking the time. David, I'll start with you. Mia, important witness. What are you taking away from her testimony so far today?
Well, it's early in her testimony, Jesse, but so far it seems like a very, very powerful witness for the prosecution. One thing that seems noticeable by people in the courtroom is her demeanor, which is really important. Jurors watch the demeanor of witnesses, and this woman doesn't want to be there. She's very soft-spoken. She keeps her head down. And all of that leads to credibility because of the things she's going to talk about. And I think the most important one will be that she was sexually assaulted by Sean Combs.
Got a great question here for you, Alexis. All these questions are great, but I mentioned before how the judge is trying to keep everybody on schedule, right? There was one thing to say, hey, we got to get Cassandra Ventura in and out of here. She's about to give birth. And guess what? She gave birth, a week? 2 weeks after her testimony? I get it. But the question we have here from Stephen Clark is, Jesse, why is there a timeline on the trial? Seems somewhat rushed to get through to keep to particular timelines. Shouldn't it be as long as it takes type of trial? That's a fair question, Alexis. What do you think?
Well, so judges do have a right to kind of, be the monitor of their courtroom to some extent. I think what the judge is communicating here is really we have coordination issues. We have to fly people in and out. And this happens all the time when you have trials with witnesses. But in this case, you have a lot of witnesses coming from other areas. So to ask the defense how long they anticipate that they are going to need for cross is totally reasonable. The judge is not putting a specific timeline on them. They seem to be kind of, it appears to me, laying this out as possible appealable issue, but the judge is making it clear that they're not doing that. We need this for coordination purposes.
By the way, I'll just throw another question to you, Alexis. This is from Amanda Miles. Does the government pay for their hotel and plane flights for the people they call as witnesses?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So it is possible that they are paying for their travel expenses to get there.